Hey guys, what's up? It's Tees here coming at you with another Tips with Tees in College Football 25. Haven't really dabbled too much into the recruiting side of College Football 25, but today we're going to be going over that, starting with school grades, explaining them in more detail, as well as going over which ones you can upgrade weekly, you can upgrade yearly, and ones that will stay static or not move at all for the remainder of your dynasty. But before we jump into that, if you could please leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, subscribe, and be on the lookout for more Tips with Tees in College Football 25. And just so you are aware, I have broken this video down into separate chapters, so take a look, and if you want to watch the whole video, great, that's awesome. Or if you're looking for a particular school grade, then you can definitely skip to that if you'd like. We're going to start out with playing style. Now, I'm using UCLA as an example for the time being. They're the team that I'm using in my online dynasty, and that is why I'm going to go with them to just go over everything on this end of things. So, is not as tricky as you think. It was a little difficult to kind of decipher when the game first did come out, but I started to get the hang of it after a few weeks. Essentially, what it comes down to is your deal breakers. Some players will have playing style as a deal breaker with a particular grade. And with each grade, A, B, C, each one, you have to make sure that your school grade is above their playing style. If it is not and it drops below, then you will not be able to recruit that particular player until that playing style grade gets bumped back up. For example, if you have a field general that needs a B grade or higher, but you're currently at a B minus, well then you are locked out until you get that grade bumped up to at least a B or higher. In this case, we have an A+. All of your playing style school grades can be changed every single week. They will be updated every single week depending on how you play with your team. For example, field general, I currently have an A+. I'm averaging 386 passing yards a game, and that puts me on the right side. You can see there the top 5 schools, which gives me an A+ grade. Now, if I average maybe 270 yards, that might put me at a B- or lower. That you'll be able to tell with the grade on the right side. It'll always show you the top schools. I think it's like the top 6 schools. If that drops, it's very easy to, bring it up. It's very easy to have it drop. If you play a few games where you're strictly trying to get yards with your running back and you're running the ball and your passing yards drop, well then your average yards per game drop, and that'll drop your grade as well. On top of that, this only applies for one quarterback at a time. Meaning, if you're going with the 2 quarterback system and you're passing with 2 separate quarterbacks, one gets 150 yards and another one gets 200 yards, you do not get 350 yards for this category. You would only get the highest one, which in this example would be 200 yards. So I hope that does make sense, because I was hoping to maybe do a little bit of a 2-tier system here, but it did not work. In my playing style school grade was at like a C until I was able to bump it up a little bit, but definitely want to keep that in mind. Again, each recruit is different, so their playing style will be affiliated with their archetype, which is right below the ACC where it says QB Field General. If you hold the right trigger, you can scroll down and see what your grades are for every single archetype in the game, which is extremely helpful. As you look at power back here, I'm not averaging too many yards per game. As you see, my grade is a D. I'm 98th in the country, and look, I honestly thought it was the top schools are going to be on the top, and on the bottom was going to be where you're kind of sitting around if you're below an A+, and I was completely wrong. But you see right there that if I were to bump that up to maybe 100 yards, 105 yards, I might bump up to the 60s, and that grade might be a C-, a C. But unfortunately, because it is so low, sometimes that doesn't help. If I have a power back that is interested in my team and they need a C+ rating for the play style, well then that's not going to work, and they're not going to be interested in my school. So it's very, very realistic. I kind of like the idea, though sometimes it does scare me sometimes, especially when you're trying to get a particular number of yards and it makes it more difficult, and people know it, especially in your online dynasties, that you're trying to keep up a certain grade. That might be a disadvantage to you. So definitely want to keep that in mind. As you go over a few more examples here, deep threat, their receiving yards per game is total. So this isn't one player particularly. This is really just the quarterback, and I think this is accumulation of all the yards that you pass with. So definitely want to keep that in mind as well. When it comes to pass protector, a lot of these are how many sacks are given up. As you see here for the center pass protector archetype, they go with the sacks allowed. It shows you how you can improve that. And as of right now, I think I'm the number 1 school. Wow, I've only given up 4 sacks all year. Wow. I didn't even know that. It's actually pretty cool. But at the same time, I still have a player that's at risk. So it's not going to guarantee you from your players wanting to transfer in the future. So just keep that in mind. It's something to definitely check here. Each archetype is a little bit different. And as you see here, you go to outside linebacker, power rusher. We currently have about 39 sacks, which is pretty high, honestly. So just want to keep that in mind, that you can check and these can be upgraded and updated every single week. So you have to keep that in mind, because there are some times where you'll be recruiting a player and all of a sudden you might be leading and the next week you're out and you're like, what the heck happened? The good thing is you don't have to go up a grade at a time, meaning if you have a C, you don't have to worry that in order to get to a B minus, which might be the playing style deal breaker, that you need 2 weeks in order to get that up, to bump it up from a C to a C plus to a B minus. You can go from a C all the way to an A plus depending on how many other schools you jump based off of how well you perform in that week. For example, in this online dynasty in the first year, I threw for 585 passing yards in one game and was at a C minus for my, I think it was field general for the quarterback or for the receiver. I was looking at a deep threat wide receiver, and I needed to get these passing yards up because that was 2 of my guys' deal breakers, and they were like 98, 99 speed, and I desperately wanted them on my team. And for 1 week, I lost the ability to recruit them, and it scared me so much. Fortunately, I was able to get it back after 1 week, and I went from like a C minus to like an A plus within a week, just because of how many passing yards I had. So keep that in mind. This could be a huge deal breaker for a lot of players, especially the higher tier ones, because they want to go to a school where they're able to perform. So it does make sense and is realistic. All right, now let's look over at proximity to home. For this one, it just mentions proximity to home depends on how far away your campus is from a recruit's home, and there's really nothing you can do here. You can check on the right side the prospects and how far away they are from your current campus, but there's nothing that you can do here, and there's nothing that the player can do. There's no way that in the game they can change where they live from either Hawaii or, let's say, New York, which is so far away from California that it could benefit you and, give you a better grade there. Nothing you can do there. This is one of those school grades that you cannot update. Championship Contender. Championship Contender measures how likely your school is able to win a championship relative to the rest of the country. It depends on how well your team is performing in the polls, as well as the overall quality of your roster. How to improve. Shows you that they got blue chip ratio, 9%. Also, current media poll rank. They'll let you know if you're outside of the top 25. This is one of the little tricks that I kind of found out with this and using this to get that championship contender out. It'll tell you what your current ranking is. So we're currently 31st in the nation for the time being, and because of that, we are at a B plus rating. So hopefully the higher rated you are, that will bump you up as well. And if you're curious what the blue chip player is, that generally refers to the cream of the crop draft prospects, or in this case, top recruits, 4 stars, 5 stars. And you just want to keep that in mind, because those are the players that you want to recruit. The more 4 and 5 stars that you have on your team, the higher percentage you're going to have, which is going to boost that championship contender. So this one can be upgraded week by week, depending on if you drop or go up in the rankings, or you win or lose. Now let's move on to program tradition. Program tradition ranks each of the schools on their overall success throughout history. Programs with the highest program tradition have a long history of national titles, Heisman winners, and a winning tradition. Perform well on the field to increase this grade. So this one can be upgraded, and not so much week to week, but every year you definitely can upgrade this depending on if you win a national championship, how many playoff games you win, if you have a Heisman winner, a conference championship, and then a bowl game on top of that. As you see, currently UCLA is at an A minus, because they really haven't done too much. They only have 1 Heisman winner, 1 national championship in their whole history. They've had a bunch of conference championships, but and bowl game appearances and wins and things like that. But that isn't what makes program tradition. The national championships is really the number one factor. If you win a national championship, your program tradition is going to bump up that next year. Any playoff wins, that's going to help as well. So you want to keep that in mind. Campus lifestyle. Campus lifestyle is a measure of how pleasant the student experience is between Saturdays and isn't impacted by the success of the football program. Campus lifestyle can't be improved by user action. So this is another one of those that you cannot update, unfortunately. However, I did notice while creating this video that if you look underneath campus lifestyle in white next to that A plus green little logo right there, it says static. And if you go through the rest of this video or even go back to the beginning, it will tell you if this is static or if this is a weekly easily updatable one. So for this one, as it says static, it just shows you right there that there is nothing that you can do, unfortunately, for the campus lifestyle. It is what it is. Stadium atmosphere. This one you can update weekly, as it does mention it underneath the stadium atmosphere. Stadium atmosphere is a measure of how much of a home field advantage your school generates. Dominate home games to increase this grade. Sounds very, very simple, very easy, and it shows you how to improve it. The 3 highest factors are home winning percentage, home attendance percentage, and average home game attendance. So on top of that, you have current home winning streak, which currently it's 2, and then team prestige, which ours is currently a 3.5 stars. So if you get that up to a 4 or even higher, then your stadium atmosphere is going to move up as well. But the more wins you get, that is definitely going to boost it as well, since current home winning streak is on there, as well as your home winning percentage. The more you win, the better your win percentage is going to be, so it's a win-win right there. Pro Potential. This one is a yearly update. The Pro Potential is a projection of how many players on your roster could be drafted. Increase this grade by improving your roster quality. Now, this one is very difficult and kind of random, because depending on how good of a team you have, it's going to be very difficult to get in that first round. And your projected first round picks is key, because that's obviously the very highest one that you can improve for the Pro Potential. Second round picks, third round picks, and basically if you get anyone drafted, it's going to boost it, but the higher the pick is, the better chance and the higher your Pro Potential will be. Brand exposure. This one is a weekly upgrade. So the brand exposure is a measure of how much attention your program gets relative to the rest of the country. Appear in more nationally televised games and games of the week to increase this grade. So there is a way for you to see what games are nationally televised and if they are televised, and you can check that on your schedule, and I think also on the weekly schedule as well. There'll be a little logo on the side, and it'll show if it is weekly, if it is a game of the week, if it's nationally televised, and things like that. How to improve national championship games played. Obviously that one is going to be huge, because the whole world is going to be watching that game. Playoff games played, because there's so few. You're one of the elite, one of the few left standing, and people want to watch those games. Games of the week played, obviously the 2 top matchups, and in my opinion, it kind of reminds me of College Game Day, when they have them at a certain campus. Obviously, the more of those, the better, because you're a top team playing against another top team. National TV games played and streaming games played. That must be a new one, because they didn't have streaming games in 2014. But just keep in mind, brand exposure can be updated weekly. Academic prestige. This one is static. Another one of those ones that you can't do anything about. And academic prestige is determined by the success off the field and is not impacted by football activities. Academic prestige can't be improved by user actions. However, there are a group of schools that already are on that list, and you can take a look right here on the right. Rice, Stanford, Northwestern, Cal, UCLA, Duke, Michigan, Illinois, Notre Dame, Vanderbilt, and Georgia Tech. Those are the top 11, that's weird, the top 11 schools in the academic prestige. And if your goal is to get A+ throughout all your school grades in a program, then you have to start with one of these schools. Because since this is a static school grade, there's nothing you can do, and it's not random, and it's not just going to drop, go up or down. So unfortunately, if you're trying to create one of those dynasties where you get A+ throughout all your school grades, you're going to pick one of those top 6 schools in order to make that possible. Conference prestige. This is a yearly upgrade as well, because it changes from year to year based off of how the schools that are in the conferences are performing. Conference prestige is the strength of teams in a conference relative to the rest of the country. Improving your prestige will bring the average up, but the quickest way to increase this grade is to change conferences. So keep that in mind. If you're starting from a small school, whether it's Appalachian State, Fresno State, one of the other schools, North Texas, another small school that is dominating their conference every single year, but you're not having a good conference prestige grade, change that conference. Jump into the ACC, jump into the Big 12, jump into the SEC, jump into the Big 10, and bump that up, because then the teams that you are playing with are a higher tier, and because of that, that will boost your conference prestige. Coach stability. This one can be upgraded per week, and I always like the weekly ones. Coach stability is a measure of the administration's general confidence in your coaching staff. Improve this grade by staying off the hot seat and having low staff turnover. Now, the low staff turnover is what I'm not a big fan of. I don't think it really should affect you too much for the low staff turnover in the sense of if you're losing an offensive or a defensive coordinator. Why I say that is because the head coach is most of the time why a player is going to want to go to a school. The offensive and defensive coordinator, yes, they'll probably see them more often. Some of the reason is definitely because of that head coach, not really the offensive or defensive coordinator. And sometimes when you go to schools that have bad offensive and defensive coordinators, not just bad grades, but also bad pipelines, it doesn't benefit you at all to hold them just so you can hopefully raise their grade. in my opinion, the only thing that matters is your pipelines. So I try to get the best pipelines I can for my school to set me up for success that way. But obviously, the ways to improve there, the number one is going to be job security, and then you have how many years you've been at the school. Again, those should be the top ones as well. And then the head coach contract remaining years, that one makes sense as well. Coordinator's years with school, that one, like I said, fortunately it's low. It's got a low impact on there, but still, I get it. I get why it's there, but I'm not a big fan of that. Coach prestige. This is a yearly upgradable school grade. Coach prestige is a measure of how successful your coach is perceived to be. Improve this grade by hiring good coaches and consistently meeting your expectations of your coaching contract. So obviously your coach prestige is based off of your coach prestige, which is your head coach. And then you have your offensive and defensive coordinator prestiges. And as you see there for UCLA, for the time being, they are a D+ and a D-, and that is not good. So you stay at the school, that's huge. You also can boost that head coach prestige, in my opinion, by winning games and winning playoff games and winning conference championships and also winning the national championship. So you do that and you'll be moving yourself up in the school grade rankings for the coach prestige. Athletic facilities. This one is a yearly upgrade. Athletic facilities measures the quality of your football facilities relative to the rest of the country. Increase your team prestige to drive this grade up. So that's good to know. As long as you're able to bump up your team prestige grade, as I mentioned earlier, we are currently at a 3.5. If you move it up to a 4, that'll move it up maybe to a B+ or an A-. And then if you get to a 4.5 or 5 star, then you're all the way up to the A+. So that's not bad, but it is nice to know that depending on your team prestige, your facilities get better, which does make sense in my opinion. Playing time. This one, it can be upgraded weekly. Playing time measures how likely a specific recruit would be able to get on the field early. It depends on the depth chart and where a recruit fits into it upon arriving to your school. So this one is a little bit tricky to me. It's probably the most tricky one that I've seen. And again, this one is weekly that you can upgrade it. But I've had it sometimes where if you are playing with a 2 running back system and you're recruiting a running back that has playing time as one of their deal breakers, that's fine for the majority of it. But if you have a running back get injured and you have to throw a third one in there because obviously one is injured, so technically you have used 3 running back, well then your playing time grade will lower because there's 3 running backs you're using instead of just 2. That's one thing that I've noticed. I'm not sure if I've seen anything else. Definitely let me know down in the comments if you've seen any other issues with the playing time or any other tidbits or tips or anything like that you saw there. But just by looking at, who you're interested in recruiting, I'm going to go at receivers because I have a bunch of them here. You have it'll show you how to improve it as well, obviously. And for my receivers, I got graduating seniors. I got 1. Wide receiver position group grade high, which is a 73 overall rating. I think that's like an average of all of your receivers in the receiver room or whatever, category or position that you are looking at. Committed wide receiver prospects also probably would lower that one as well, because if you have 1 or 3 different receivers and then a 4th one joins, it's probably going to lower because there's going to be less of a chance for them to play out of the gate, right? Which kind of makes sense. And as you look on the right, it shows the wide receivers on board, their grades a D+, C+, A-, and a C-. So those are pretty much based off of 4 stars, I believe, because as you see on the rating on the right side on that star, it shows Grimes is a number 4 star, Moss is a 4 star, Garland's a 4 star. I'm not sure why he's a C- rating, but the 2 3 stars that I have on the board, they are a D+ grade. But that'll do it for the video, guys. Hopefully you guys did get something out of this. Hopefully you guys learned something in recruiting that'll help you be more successful with recruiting. But if I missed anything, or if you have any other tips for any of the other subscribers on my channel, please drop them down in the comments below. But if you guys did get something out of this, please leave a like. And if you're new to the channel, please subscribe and be on the lookout for more tips with Teeds in College Football 25. Thanks.